And I think it is. Great writing.
Thank you.
That sounds so good. Uh, ladies and gentlemen, I am Dan Radlauer. And that's how you pronounce your name,
You
right?
did wonderfully.
Let's see. I just want to make sure. It says I have an error that occurred. Am I just checking? I am. Look, yeah, think I am on because Facebook looks like it's live. So bear with me for Yes. Hi, TJ. Yeah. So my friends Taylor Hatch is here. TJ TJ Hudson is a trumpet player, old friend of mine. TJ, I'm writing it down. This is Dan Radlauer's band. Great, right? He did recognize Wayne's playing, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah.
How can you not?
Oh, Taylor already has a question, but I'm going to wait just for a second, Taylor, just so I can kind of, you know, glide into this conversation. So, Dan, I actually forget how we came across each other, but
It's funny. I was trying to remember myself, and I think maybe somehow I ended up on one of your email lists and reached out to you and said, "Hey, we share a lot of, common interests and common goals of creating community in Los Angeles, music community." And so,
yeah,
we just kind of emailed back and forth. We know a lot of the same people, of course,
yeah, might have even been during the pandemic, you know.
I think it was. One of the things that I do is I have my acoustic asylum group,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a acoustic all stars, jazz adjacent, really fun group with Carl Verheyen, Mark Hollingsworth, a violinist by the name of Megan Chung. Gordon Peak plays drums, Dave Murata plays bass, and I play accordion of all things in that band. And it's kind of this swampy, funky, bluesy Americana thing. And I think that was one of the things I was trying to sort of see if you could help me find venues for that, because it's jazz, like I call it jazz adjacent. There's a lot of improvisation and we do jazzy stuff, but we also do songs, quirky songs and swamp and klezmer and all kinds of stuff. So somehow we connected.
Yeah, maybe it was through Kulak's actually.
Could
Maybe
be.
you
Yeah.
wanted to do Kulak. This is funny. Jazz adjacent. Wow, that's an interesting genre. I was trying to come up with alternative jazz, but jazz adjacent, that's I
Well, if
like
you heard
that.
if you heard the band, and we could play some a little later,
Yeah.
it's definitely jazz adjacent, and it appeals to jazz. A jazz audience loves it because the musicianship is so high, and there's a lot of improvisation. But non-jazz people, for lack of a better term, love it too because it's very relatable. It's we don't go off into all the solos are set in the arrangement. They don't go on forever, and there's a good, nice toe tapping energy, but it's very accessible.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So a band like that, is that, do you hear that? I mean, in the beginning, did you hear that conglomeration in your head?
So
And
one of the things that happened, I don't know if do you know Carl Verheyen,
yeah,
guitarist?
I do. Yeah.
So we've been friends for God, longer than I'd care to admit. And one of the things I really love about his musicianship is when he plays acoustic, his acoustic playing is phenomenal. And then this was back in the early 2000s. I met a violinist by the name of Ludwig Gördland. He was a Swedish kid. He was like 22 or 3 years old. And he played jazz better than any violinist I'd ever heard. And I thought, I got to do something with this guy. And so I talked to Carl, and I had this idea of doing something that was acoustic, but incorporated all these interesting instruments. So Mark Hollingsworth, who is a fantastic woodwinds player, he actually I started off with Dan Higgins playing clarinet and baritone sax, no tenor, no alto. And the fact that there's no tenor, no alto, only baritone and clarinet and violin and I was playing accordion, so no acoustic piano. Carl's playing acoustic guitar and the bass is electric bass. So it really kind of became a really unique sound. And once we got together and started playing, it was like, hey, this is a really interesting combination of human beings playing instruments. And I wrote a whole bunch of music that was to feature all these wonderful musicians, but in a little bit different setting. Carl's, he plays a lot of stuff, but a lot of electric stuff. But his, like I said, his acoustic playing is great. And then Dan Higgins at the time, who was doing the clarinet and baritone, he's great on everything, but his clarinet playing is just really awesome. And so, and then Ludwig was this young kid who just played so beautifully and so amazingly. It's a little bit of a sad story. He was in a car accident and doesn't play violin anymore.
Oh,
And so the band kind of went into a hiatus, and then I sort of hiatus. And so I sort of reconstituted it in around 2016, 17 with a new violinist. Dan Higgins just too busy doing, all that he does. So Mark Hollingsworth became the woodwinds player, also playing clarinet and baritone sax. And we started just playing and recording and doing stuff.
yeah. How many different styles bands do you have?
Well, I have many musical personalities. So my day gig is writing music for TV and film and commercials. And I spent, 20 years doing commercials and doing from Coke to Mattel to Joe's Plumbing. I mean, it's like all over the place. And kind of cut my teeth doing that and really became sort of I call myself a musical Swiss Army knife. I'm like a Swiss Army musician or a Swiss Army composer, and I write in
Right.
all styles.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of scoring, which encompasses a lot of the styles, but
Yeah.
I'm currently have kind of three live musical sort of personalities. One is I do a lot of big band music, big band writing, and I have a reading band that is it's a reading band. In fact, we're playing this Sunday, and at some point I want to promote that. It's a reading band that's open to the public, and it's a really fun good band.
Great.
And so that's part of my thing. And I do a lot of commissions, and I also speak at colleges and high schools about music and jazz, especially big band jazz. And then there's different people. I play both keyboards and bass. And so I fit in different places in different spots. Then the Acoustic Asylum Band, again, like I said, is jazz adjacent. I play accordion in that, which is weird, but it's really fun. And then I have another band that I play with called the Ragtag Band, and we do kind of roots rock from Hank Williams all the way through to, James Taylor and some original stuff, some Muddy Waters. So I do a lot of different things. I'm not an ADD person, but you might look at my life and think I'm ADD. So,
So when okay, so I mean, I understand the various points of view in your life, because makes sense to me. But I'm just curious. Is there kind of a flow to what comes up for you? And like there's some kind of a project that kind of appears, and then you work on that, finish it, and
yeah,
meanwhile there's something else that appears.
that's a really good question in that, if your musical lens is wide, which I try to keep it as wide as I can,
Yeah.
things come up and start influencing everything else.
Yeah.
Like I was in a klezmer band for 10 years. And my klezmer, the klezmer started sneaking into my scoring and into the jazz and then I have a son who is also a musician traveling the world with his band. And, but growing up, he was into all kinds of things from punk to dubstep. And he got really into dubstep and he kind of came to me and said, "Dad, listen to this stuff." And I listened to it and I go, "Wow, how are they doing this? This is really interesting." So I got totally into dubstep for about 3 years.
I'm sorry, I don't know what dubstep is.
So dubstep is it's a genre that was very popular in the early teens, the 2000 teens, and it's very synth oriented, but it's got this, it's got a very unique sound that has a lot of modulating sounds that change. If you heard it, you'd go, "Oh, I've heard that stuff. I know what it is." You just don't know what it's called. But again, that started sneaking into my scoring. And that sort of, people kind of went like, "Whoa, this is interesting. We've got orchestral traditional scoring with these other kind of synthetic, very contemporary at the time sounding things that come together." So I get influenced by my son, by the klezmer band, by my
Yeah.
daughter who listens to Taylor Swift and Beyonce, and
Right.
um, so yeah. And I play acoustic guitar and I play keyboards. I play electric bass, and so I'll go in. I love jumping into situations, musical situations that are unfamiliar to me, and just use my ears and my hopefully musical understanding to fit into new situations, and they start to influence me and inform me that way as well.
Very interesting. Wild. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it all.
Yeah. I like when music kind of spans the boundaries, and brings in other influences. I think it's really great. I mean, I saw that happening, I mean, in jazz, or at least in the jazz community here, maybe 15, 20 years ago. It was like I saw that starting to
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
really take over in live performances anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's really great. It's great
So
because it
to
reaches everybody, right?
to spin off of that, one of the things that I'm working on right now and I'm really excited about is this unexpected guests project. And if you'd like to, we could talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So, as I mentioned, I was in a klezmer band for a while and kind of got into that. And there is a connection between klezmer and jazz. Klezmer is basically Eastern European music mixed with a little bit of Middle Eastern harmonic influence. And it came to the United States in the early 20th century with migrating Jews. And those musicians started getting involved in jazz as well. And so klezmer influenced jazz and jazz influenced klezmer in the early 20th century. So when I started playing with a fairly traditional klezmer band, I just got really into it, and I thought I want to kind of do the same thing. So I wrote a piece that was a klezmer clarinet feature called Mazel Tov Cocktail, and it's a klezmer big band tune, and it was put on an album by a band in San Diego called the Big Band Jazz Machine that's run by Ira Liss, and we've been friends for a long time. And he's had the band for 40 years, and it was his 40th anniversary for the band, and Mazel Tov Cocktail seemed to be appropriate, and it became the title track on the album. And it's very unexpected. It's quirky, as you can imagine. It's got the clarinet feature. It's also got that version actually doesn't have violin on it, but I did an accordion solo on it, and we started talking, and I said, this is such a fun mashup, klezmer and big band. And I said, what about doing a whole album of kind of unexpected things? And the name just came to me. I said, like unexpected guests. And that became the name of the album. And the concept is unexpected artists and instruments with the classic jazz orchestra, big band, 17-piece big band. And the first thing we recorded was we got lucky enough to connect with Vince Gill, 22-time Grammy-winning, amazing songwriter, singer, guitar player. I had seen him in Nashville with a band. If you ever go to Nashville, anyone out there, if you go to Nashville, you've got to go see the Time Jumpers. Have you heard of them, or are you familiar with them?
No, but I know people in Nashville.
Unbelievable. They are the top session and touring musicians in Nashville. And they play kind of Western swing, and they're just great. They have like 3 violinists, they're all just, triple black belt musicians.
Yeah.
And Vince Gill was singing and playing with them. And I thought, man, it'd be great to do a country swing thing with Vince Gill and the big band. This was what I wanted to do. But, Vince Gill is a huge star, and it's like the chance of getting him was just crazy.
Right.
So I wrote an email. Ira mailed it to Vince Gill,
Yeah.
and he was interested. And so our first unexpected guest was Vince Gill, and great guy. So he had written a song. I wanted to do country swing, but what he wanted to do, and he's Vince Gill, so he gets to do what he wants to do. He wanted to do kind of a classic Nelson Riddle big band arrangement because he'd never done that. This was for him. He doesn't need do any. He's lead singer in the Eagles and touring with the Eagles, but he'd never sung with a big band before.
Yeah.
So the idea was we're going to go. I was sort of inspired by Quincy Jones, Frank Sinatra videos at Capitol Records. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
So I thought, let's do something like that with live. Everything's live. We're going to videotape it, and we're going to do this unexpected Vince Gill with a big band. And so we did it, and it just turned out fantastic. And the video turned out fantastic. And then we were off and running with unexpected guests. And we've done Tally Rubenstein, who plays. We have a video on that too. She plays recorder. The little recorder, and she is a phenomenal jazz musician on recorder. I mean, it's like, that's unexpected in itself. And then I wrote a piece for her with the big band. It turned out really great. And then we recorded by a guy by the name of Paul Hansen. He's a jazz bassoonist. And then recorded Rocky Duani, who is a Ghanan Afrobeat musician. Again, like with a big band, totally different. There's an amazing cellist. She's everywhere. Her name is Tina Guo. You might see she tours with Hans Zimmer, and she's just amazing. And she'd never played with a big band, so we got cello and big band with her. And then we've done mandolin with Eva Scow, an incredible musician. Recorded a great violinist, Nora Germain. And next week, we're recording Daniel Ho, who is an incredible ukulele player. So these are all with a big band, and I've either written original music for them or taken one of their songs and adapted it for the big band. And we do it live. We do it with a film crew, and we've got a great band. And it's so that's one of these things where I'm pulling in all these unexpected influences into the jazz big band, which I love. I love big band jazz, and I love writing for big band, and stretching the genre outside of where it sits most normally and comfortably.
Interesting. So I definitely saw the Rocky one here, and I was gonna let's see. I'm looking. Yeah. Do you mind if we watch
Watch the Vince Gill one. It's really sweet.
Vince, let's see, Herding Cats.
I can send it to you really
Oh,
easy.
I got it. I'm
You got it?
counting.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So, sharing.
So I've given you the backgrounder of how this all came together.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
All right.
Counting on you to come to my rescue. I'm counting on you to find me someday.
I'm Dan Radlauer, and I'm the arranger of the piece we just recorded, I'm Counting on You.
I'm Ira B. Liss, and I'm the leader of my band, the Big Band Jazz Machine.
We thought, hey, what about doing a whole album of sort of interesting combinations with the standard 17-piece big band? And I thought doing maybe a Western swing thing might be a nice thing to do. And Ira said, well, who do you think we would get? And I said, well, my first choice would be Vince Gill.
And they said they had this band and they'd heard me sing and liked the way I sang, and would you consider doing a song? We're going to do a record of our band. I said, sure, it'd be fun. I'm counting on you, though I've never met you.
Vince called me, and we chatted, and we talked about, well, would we want to do an existing cover tune? Do you want to do one of your tunes, one of my tunes?
And I said, well, I got this tune that I've written. Check it out. If you don't like it, it's okay. I've been told that before that people didn't like my songs, so you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't like it.
And so I took his just guitar and vocal track, and I started doing different kinds of arrangements with this song, and we came upon this really classic big band thing, which is what he really wanted to do.
Dan wrote a really beautiful arrangement of it, and And so here's a song that probably would have never seen the light of day for me. I picture your face and a smile to die for. Oh, how the nights will be lonely no more. I'll be anticipating all of these kisses I'm saving. Oh, true love of mine, where can you be? The part that I played was to create a song, put it in the hands of a great arranger and Dan and a great conductor, and watch them do what they do. Everybody, everybody gets to do what they do best.
I got great musicians, and these guys understand when they walk into a studio, they know why they're there. And they go and they do their job, and they do it really well.
It was great to record in the studio. Everyone was rowing in the same direction. That's what creates a nice, fun environment where people can do their best work.
I love coloring outside the lines. This is coloring outside the lines a little bit for me.
Maybe this will open a few eyes and ears to jazz and big band jazz through Vince Gill's popularity and appeal. Maybe some of the people who are jazz listeners will hear Vince Gill and go, wow, I never thought about Vince Gill in that way. Let me hear more of this type of music.
Music is music. It's the universal language. If people are committed to making really good music, why do we have to put a label on it?
I think Count Basie said it pretty good a long time ago. There's only two kinds of music, good and bad. So I'd like to be on the good side of what this becomes.
To work with somebody like Vince Gill, who has, 22 Grammys under his belt, well, that was just a treat.
This has been a really fun and sweet day with a lot of neat people.
I think Vince Gill really wanted to have an authentic voice from himself and have that fit authentically into the band. And I think we achieved that.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
Love it. And actually, I was thinking as I was watching, yeah, wow, I never knew Vince Gill sang so good. I mean, I
yeah.
knew his name.
Yeah.
That's about it, because I don't really listen to that kind of music.
Exactly. And that's kind of the sort of the point is, mixing it up,
Yeah,
Whoops.
yeah. It's okay. Just a little,
Technology.
I'm forward to hearing the rest. I'll ask a few questions. Taylor is always he's a question guy.
Like that.
Let's see. I'm looking. He has about 5 questions. So, but TJ would like to know, when and where is the community big band?
Yes. So, is it, I could put, well, I'll just tell you,
Yeah.
it's at the Santa Monica Elks Lodge.
Hold on.
We-
At the Santa Monica Elks Lodge. Yep.
which is at 1040 Pico Boulevard, and we play from
Is it Sundays?
it's the first Sunday of every month. I'm going to put this in the chat here. I don't know if you can disseminate it. Here's the one for this Sunday. So it's Sunday, March 2nd, right, rather, 1 to 3 p.m. There's plenty of parking. It's $5, and it's a great band. We've got a really good band this month. Gordon Peak is playing drums. Mark Hollingsworth is lead alto. Chad Willis is first trumpet, and Jim McMillan is playing lead trombone. And we just read and have fun, and there's an audience, and you can get drinks. They're real cheap, and there's plenty of parking. It's a very fun afternoon where the musicians have a great time, and we, if you've ever been to what's called a reading band. I'll call a tune either from my book or someone else's book. We'll decide who's making the solos. We'll kind of talk through the form and we'll play. And we're kind of reading for the first time often. And on occasion, we'll stop and start again or start in the middle of the tune. So it's kind of it's a really fun way to not only hear great jazz, but also kind of see what happens at a rehearsal of really top-notch musicians in this situation. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm writing it also in my book because, there's so many things I have to keep up with, like who's playing where, when.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's good to know this is Dan's band. Okay.
Yeah, love to have you come in and sing sometime. That would be fun.
Yeah. Pico. Okay, good. Yeah, I just started doing a breakfast gig at Second and Broadway every Saturday morning, 9:30 to 1 at
That
Jink.
Jinkies, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I found a good combination of people. I'm trying to help him out, and so my original idea, because we've been working on it for about a year, but the fires and all that stuff. So I wanted to give him a good deal, So, but we used Dori Amarillo on guitar and Joey De Leon on percussion, and it's really good. They're both great players. Joey De Leon is a really funny, open guy. So I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to help
I'll have to
build
come down and check it out.
back.
Yeah.
Because it's just wow, the businesses they're really hurting.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So let's see.
Also, as far as if someone wants to get on my mailing list,
Yeah,
the easiest thing is for them to email me. And my email is really easy to remember. It's Dan, it's my name, at radmusic. Dan at radmusic, like music is rad, .net. Dan at radmusic.net. And I'll happily put you on my spammy email. And I don't send out a lot. I send out 1 or 2 a month, because I'm doing a couple different things every month. And so I try to keep it to a dull roar.
yeah, that's true. I'm on the list. It's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Taylor, well, first of all, he thinks that you and George Stone, who's a mentor to him, have know each other possibly.
Possible. It's possible.
George Stone. Okay, so do you have a favorite type of structure of instrumentation to voice chords and voicings?
Okay, well, one of the really wonderful things about the big band is that it is a set instrumentation. And if you're writing for one big band, you're writing for every big band in the whole world. And that's really a wonderful thing. Even orchestras have more variation, because orchestras come in all shapes and sizes. So, so I really love the big band. And there's kind of nothing quite like it in the sense that you use harmonies that are jazz harmonies, but I think of them being frozen in kind of frozen. A voicing I might play on piano might translate into to the big band, or other things that I would never play on the piano. But so I really enjoy using that existing instrumentation that's been around for decades, and so that's one of my favorite things because I just know it so well. And then I do love orchestration for strings, brass, woodwinds, percussion, all that sort of stuff, because it leads you into a whole different sort of mindset. But when I'm assuming that he's talking about jazz, so I love that the way the big band is laid out with the bones, the trombones and the trumpets and the saxes kind of in between, and how they can speak together or speak separately. They can speak in individual lines. They can speak in groups. So that's just, I don't know if that's answering the question, but that's certainly one of my favorite ways of approaching things. The other thing that I really believe and work at, and I get pretty good feedback on this, is I'll never try to confuse a musician. If I want a good performance on a piece I've created, I want them to be able, the musician to be able to look at it, understand it, and play it. And so I've really, worked at making my music as playable as possible and still get the effect that I want. I'm not going to dumb down the effect unless I'm working with my high school big band, which I also work with as a volunteer, and we can get into that. I almost try to make it fit the instrument and fit the style in a way that's comfortable so that I, as a composer, get the most out of the musician. And that means making sure it's in a range that's comfortable and in a kind of movement that's comfortable. And I think great orchestrators and arrangers understand this, that you never want to confuse the musician. You can confuse the audience, and that's perfectly fine. But don't confuse the musician, because you won't get the performance you want.
So, yeah, just to kind of say that in a very simple terms, it's like you have certain rules that you follow, but then of course it's your own choice of,
Yeah, I mean, rules are the beautiful thing about music is that there's rules, but they're happily broken.
yeah,
And so I'll happily break a rule, and I'll sometimes write something that I know that a musician's going to have to look at it 2 or 3 times to get it right. That's the way it goes, if that's the effect I want. But I will first. I do a lot of teaching and mentoring of aspiring composers, and as I mentioned, as a volunteer, I run the jazz band at Pacific Palisades High School, which is a whole other thing that we can talk about because of the fire and so on. But I have this rule, which is simple but effective. And that, to me, that applies actually in all of life. You want to get the effect you want. You don't want to compromise on that if you can. You just want to get there in the simplest way possible. And whether that's building a house or creating a symphony, that's how I view life.
yeah. It seems, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't even heard that much, but seems like your band may not go on and on with a lot of soloing.
I personally am not a big believer in, super long solos. I think, first of all, as a soloist, I can only say the same lick so many times. I recognize my own limitations. But I believe that audiences, unless they're really a hardcore jazz audience, couple 2 to 4 choruses, depending on how long it is. But in my arrangements, I keep the solos fairly concise. And unless it's a feature, then I might open up a little bit more, or find a couple different places. This is something I like to do, and you'll see it if we watch a little bit more of some of the unexpected guest stuff. I'd like to show the Tally Rubenstein one, because first of all, she's phenomenal, and it's a really fun example of this idea of how can you possibly put a recorder in a big band. And you can, and when you see it, you'll go, I get it. But I like to, if it's a feature, I like to have a solo, then have the band have their moment in the sun, and then bring the soloist back again, and make sure the soloist gets their moments in the sun, as opposed to big, long, stretched out thing.
Yeah.
Which I think 2 things can happen. One is a soloist has to be really good to maintain a good arc of a solo over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And then it's asking a lot of an audience to just suffer through that if it's not happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now I'm wondering too, like Taylor had another question. I just wondered, considering some of the things that you're talking about. He said, what are your favorite kinds of chords to use upper structure triads over?
Yes. Well, in a big band setting, I am a big fan of upper, voicing the trumpets once they get above a certain point in triads. And I think that creates a nice clean sound. I really like that, and it'll incorporate the extensions I want without, if you want a cluster, that's great, and that's the sound you go after. And sometimes I do that, but I am kind of a fan of that upper voicing in triads as a nice clean sound. So, and maybe they heard that in some of the work that I've done, but that's definitely something I enjoy doing. And it depends what you want to sound like. I just did a piece again for the Unexpected Guests CD where it was for a violinist, and we did it in really, I don't want to call it 20s or 30s, but it was definitely an old style. The trumpets were all in mutes, the trombones were all in mutes the whole way through. And I voice it differently for that sort of thing. Back, they back then they didn't do so much of that triad upper voice things. They voiced them a little closer. And if that's the way you want to sound, then that's what you got to do. So one thing I will say is, if there are people who are interested in composing, arranging, whatever, it's important to be a critical listener, not in the sense of being critical of something, but to break it down, to analyze what's going on here, so that you can say, what's going on here, I really like it, or what's going on here, I don't like it, so that you can use those tools in your work.
Yeah. I'd love to hear the recorder person.
That's Tally Rubenstein, Renaissance woman.
Okay, I got that here. Okay. Come on, move over, baby. There you go. Okay.
My name is Tally Rubenstein. I play the recorder, and I had the privilege to collaborate with these wonderful guys and the big band.
I'm Ira B. Liss, and I'm leader of my own big band, the Big Band Jazz Machine.
My name's Dan Radlauer, and this is one of the pieces we're going to have on the album Unexpected Guests. Recorder with a big band is definitely unexpected.
There are so many challenges in playing jazz on recorder, which I have no one to tell me this is how you do it on recorder. Practicing towards this recording and preparing, I was very nervous. It took me a while to understand how can I get this groove, really to embrace it and make it sound loose.
You and I kind of collaborated back and forth. We're really trying to get an authentic voice out of the artist and an authentic voice with the band.
After a couple of takes, I just started getting back into myself and feeling really good. And I'm realizing it's much more fun than I thought it would be. And of course, it doesn't hurt that the band was sounding pretty amazing.
The band had been rehearsing the piece. I could see it in their faces. How is this going to fit? And what? I said, give it time. You'll see how it'll fit.
One of the things I wanted to do was utilize all the recorders and have that range covered. And it's just such a different sound. You know, it's so great to get an inspiration to put into my composition and arranging.
And the composition is just amazing. You really understood the nature of the instrument when you wrote it. I feel like you really got into my brain almost.
Thank you, and I'm really pleased that you took something away that you didn't expect.
And the same thing that makes it a challenge is also what makes it very, very satisfying, very fun.
Inside, I was smiling the whole time.
When you have fun, the band has fun, and then the people who listen have fun.
Oh, wow. Something. Oh, man.
So you can see that it's just sort of unexpected. That's
Definitely.
yeah, and she's amazing. I got to say. I mean, if you've ever played recorder, what she does on it is like you shouldn't be able to do that. It's just
Yeah, it's a very unusual instrument to play jazz on, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she really, I'm sure she worked her butt off,
Oh,
you know,
how could
getting
you? I mean, yeah. I mean,
together.
it's such a hard instrument to play with that kind of chromaticism.
Yeah.
I literally don't understand how it even happens.
Yeah.
But it was so fun to write for her, and especially, doing the soli, the 5-part, where we got the whole, like you would do with the sax sectional, I did it with the recorders, and it's just different and fun and quirky, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Taylor's Taylor's digging it. He says, "I'm loving this listening here. You're giving me so much inspiration for my
Ah,
creative
great.
grid."
That makes my day.
He loves Henry Mancini, and he's interested if you have a Mancini piece or arrangement that's influential for you.
Not really specifically. I am kind of a musical sponge and a little bit of a musical chameleon. When I listen to something enough, it starts to get in me and affect me in ways, that I just start sort of, you know, incorporating those influences. And that can go from heavy metal to jazz to orchestral to klezmer, like I mentioned, country. I'm just, I really love it all. And while I do a lot of jazz, it's just one of my many personalities.
Yeah. You mentioned teaching at the Pacific Palisades High
Yeah.
School.
So I have a son whose name is Ruben, and his band, if you want to check it out, totally different than anything that we're going to be listening to today. It's called Model, like MODEL slash actress, ATRIZ, as in the Spanish spelling of actriz. And they are a very edgy kind of industrial dance, rock, punk band. So anyway, as he was growing up, I was mentoring him, and he was interested in music from day one. And so I became kind of music parent as he went through elementary school, middle school, and high school. And I was always involved in the music department and starting after school music programs or even lunchtime music things. And when he graduated, he actually went off to Berklee College of Music. I was sort of like, well, I guess, he's off doing that, and that part of me maybe is done. And I mentioned it to a very dear friend by the name of Larry Newman, who runs he provides music teachers to a lot of the private schools and even public schools around LA. And he had mentioned that there was a new teacher over at Pacific Palisades High School. This was in about 2000, probably 16, and that she was a very good classical conductor, but she really didn't know her jazz, and that she could use some help. So I contacted her, and she said, "Sounds great." I went over there, and immediately I saw that Larry was right. She's a very good classical conductor, and she really doesn't know or is not that interested in jazz, but part of the job of being the teacher of the orchestra at Pacific Palisades High School includes running the jazz band. So I volunteered to sort of just take over the teaching part of that. So she handles all the administration stuff. I write all the music for the kids, and I go there 2 or 3 times a week. And I've been doing it now for 8 years, and it's picked up where I kind of left off with Ruben in being. Oh, also, I've been teaching up in Idlewild Arts Academy every summer for 2 weeks, but that's just a 2-week thing, and I really enjoy that and working with a great staff up there. We can talk about that. But I've become very much I just love these kids in you know the music kids, and I have one of my own. I also have a daughter, but she's not that musical, and so I really relate to these kids, and I develop really fun relationships. And they're in the band for 4 years, and then they move on. Some of them go into music, but most of them don't, and that's fine. And every year it's a little different instrumentation because it's never a full regular big band. And since it's like, okay, this year I have a clarinet, 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, vibes, and 3 saxophones, all right for that ensemble. And I know that this kid can play lots of stuff, and this kid is really just learning. So I'll write that part for that kid and that part for this kid. And everyone is in their, just like I was talking about, everyone's in trying to get in their sweet spot and make them reach a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, everything was going great until January when the place, when Pacific Palisades. Now, the high school did not burn down, but we can't go to class for quite some time. So I've had 2 rehearsals with the band at the Elks Club where I do my band on Sundays. We've had 2 midweek rehearsals there, and I'm trying to make it so that we can make that our rehearsal space and continue working with the kids. So that's my, and it's become a big part of my life. I spend a lot of time writing and going and working with these kids, and I'm a volunteer. There's no money in it, and but I just get so much out of it. It's just really fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Really great. Let's see, you had mentioned some other things that I should pay attention to or possibly talk about. And maybe I'm going to look at your email to me. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the Griffith Observatory Planetarium score.
Yes.
And the show runs 10 times a week.
Yeah. So this is something, a company I work with, do a lot of scoring. In fact, I'm working on a movie right now with them. It's a music company. And they were asked to do the score and the sound design and mix for a new show at the Griffith Observatory. And they put up a new show about every 5 to 7 years. So it's kind of to me, it was a big deal to be able to be asked and say, okay, we want you to score something that's going to show, I think it's even more than 10 times a week, but and be there for years. And it was a great experience. I got to work with some of the most creative visual effects and producers, some really absolute top of the world astrophysicists and astronomers putting the show together. And it was an interesting experience because we had the storytellers, the Hollywood people, if you will, who were people like me, and the director and the producer. They're the showbiz people.
Yeah.
And then you've got the science people who want to teach, and we want to make sure people are engaged. So it was a very interesting dance, but everyone was very respectful and we had a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of the score. The score turned out really nice. And if you've ever been to the planetarium and seen the planetarium show, they always have a quote unquote live presenter, a person who comes out and is basically narrating this movie that's about 32 minutes long, and they do it live every time. And it's actually this kind of dance between the music and the narrator, in that there's the visual aspect, and it's in the dome. So it's this huge IMAX style dome. It's a beautiful building, and it's projected, and you're completely immersed in this thing. And the sound system is a 28-2 sound system as opposed to like a 7-1 in a regular theater. 28 speakers, subwoofers. It's a really amazing thing. And but they do this, they narrate this thing, but they do it to the second every time. They memorize it and they give it exactly the same, and it synchronizes perfectly with the music. So when we mixed it in the dome, the music comes up, sound effects go here, music comes up, all these things, and the voice, but they do the same every time, but with a live human being. It's very interesting. And there's, I think, 15 or 16 different presenters, because happens so much over the course of a month. So I have my favorite presenters. I'll go, oh, good, it's so-and-so, or, oh, God, it's so-and-so, I hate them, you know? And the last time I was there, it was like, oh, man, I'm not going to say the name. And it's like, he's terrible. And the people are with it. I didn't say anything, but afterwards, that presenter was weird. And it's like, yeah, music was great, but boy, that presenter. Anyway, that's kind of getting in the weeds.
Kind of
But
like a singer, right? Like singer knowing the lyrics, knowing the music,
yeah,
and
it's the interpretation of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
story. And we're talking, I mean, it's about, the name of the show is called Signs of Life, and it's about our human beings looking for life in space. And
Yeah.
as our technology gets stronger and stronger, we have more and more clues that lead us to think, well, maybe there's life here, maybe there's life there, maybe there was life on Mars. And so to score this kind of grand conceptual idea, like, it was really a thrill. And it's a full orchestral score. As a funny little thing I like to say, so it was this kind of battle between the storytellers, the Hollywood people, and the scientists. And the scientists, said they didn't want any sound effects. They said, well, in space, there's no air, so there's no sound. And I said, well, so there's no sound in space. And they said, no. And I said, but apparently there's music. They said, okay, because we're putting music everywhere, but so anyway, it was this funny thing. Some sound effects did end up in the show, but it's very music driven. So that's kind of nice.
Okay, and so this is just a demonstration,
So this is like the teaser.
right?
Yeah, this is like the trailer, if you will.
Trailer. Okay.
Life abounds on Earth, but could it survive? Hidden in the sands of Mars? Inside the misty jets of Enceladus? Within the methane seas of Titan? Or on the thousands of planets we've discovered orbiting other stars? Join us in the search for signs of life.
Exciting. All right. I got to go hear it now because
First of all, just going up to the planetarium, it's a beautiful building, an amazing place, great place to look at the Hollywood sign. And I grew up in Los Angeles, so it's, to me, it was a place we would go, every few years. And the show is really an intellectually challenging show because it's asking, well, what do we think? Are we alone in the universe, or are there possibly other beings,
yeah. It's beautiful. Now, obviously, Taylor, this probably was on your website, and I actually don't go deeply into looking people up who I interview. I kind of do it surface because I just want to take the conversation
Yeah.
where it goes. But he said when it came to projects like Mummy the Third or We're Not Broke, what were you thinking in terms of how to creatively bring the music to life?
So scoring is different than composing for art. And when I compose for art, like my big band music or the Acoustic Asylum or writing a song just because I feel it, it's a completely different process. When I'm scoring for those things that he mentioned and he decided, the story is already there. And so my job is to make the story more evocative, more effective, sometimes to cover up a problem that they have or to emphasize a strong thing. So I'm very much informed by two things. One, what am I looking at and what's the story? And then the director of the visual medium is the captain of the ship. So I will ask him or her, what are you trying to achieve here? And my goal is to help them achieve that. So occasionally I have to save people from themselves if they have really bad ideas, but most of the time, the direction I get from directors is good and I can follow it, or we'll follow it and we will realize together that it's not working and we'll change it. So every environment is different. You mentioned those things. The Mummy, I was working with another composer on that, using some of his themes and orchestrating and making my own cues. And that was an action adventure. That's a genre that I know well, and I had so much fun writing big bombastic stuff. We're Not Broke was a very small documentary about the financial crisis. So it was a much more kind of quirky small group kind of thing, telling a story about how we came to the financial crisis in 2008. So every situation is different, and as a composer, I try to fill my toolbox with as many tools as I can get in terms of genre and instrumentation. I use synthesizers a lot. I use acoustic instruments a lot, and I feel that I've studied enough that I have a very deep toolbox where I can, if someone says, I want you to sound like Mozart, I can sound like Mozart. Or if they say, I want you to sound like Drake, I can sound like Drake except the rapping part.
It sounds like, I'm going to ask this question anyway, but it sounds like pretty much everything interests you. But are there certain kinds of things that come along that really tweak your gourd? You know, like, ooh, I really want to do this.
Like for instance, the dubstep thing, because, you know, I talked about listening critically, and I think it's super important for anyone who's interested in music and creating music to listen critically. You as a singer, you've probably listened to a zillion singers, and you say, oh, I love the way he or she does this. I don't like the way he or she does that. You pick and choose for what you want. So I've broken down so many kinds of music that when my son Ruben came and played me dubstep, I went, I don't know how they're doing this. I want to find out. So that's kind of where I'm at. When I hear something that's fresh and different, I dive in and try to break it down and understand what's going on. And if I can, and if it's appropriate, I'm not going to fit something in that isn't appropriate, but if it's appropriate, I'll bring in those influences in my scoring or my artistic writing as well.
Yeah, yeah. Do you get time to go out and hear live music?
Not that much. Usually, if it's live music, I'm playing,
Yeah.
and I enjoy that. And one of my favorite things to do as far as listening and hearing live music is in small venues, because I find big venues unrewarding as a listening experience, where if you're in a small venue and you can really be up close and personal with people. Another thing, my wife and I have a place in Portugal, in Porto, Portugal, and I've gotten into fado, which is the Portuguese kind of equivalent of flamenco to Spain, and fado is to Portugal. It's very different than flamenco, so you can't really compare the two. But
It's the ethnic music of
yeah,
the country.
yeah. And so I was listening to a lot of that. I started meeting fado musicians, and now when I go to Portugal, I'll sit in with the local fado musicians and make a fool of myself, but they're very kind.
On your
Actually, I play
accordion
bass.
or
I'll play
Okay.
bass. Yeah.
I would think accordion might be.
You know, they don't use accordion much. In Portuguese, love accordions, but fado generally does not have accordion. Fado has a very specific guitar called the Portuguese guitar. And I remember saying, what's it really called? And they said, the Portuguese guitar. That's what it's called. It's got 12 strings, but it's not a 12 string. It's a teardrop shaped, and they play with 2 fingers. And I've messed around with it, but I can't play it at all. But a typical fado ensemble is just a guitar, acoustic, they call it the viola, but an acoustic nylon string, looks like a nylon string guitar, but it actually has steel strings, and then a Portuguese guitar. And sometimes they put bass into, and so I'll go and I'll play bass. And it's a lot simpler. I only have one note at a time to worry about. And yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
But it's a lot like jazz in that, check this out. This will blow your mind, Cathy.
Yeah.
There's a kind of there's a lot of fado standards, right? Okay.
Yeah.
They will mix and match the lyrics and the melodies from different fado standards. So imagine singing When Sunny Gets Blue with the tune of All the Things You Are and the lyrics of Someday My Prince Will Come.
That's very interesting. You know, the only time I've experienced that personally is, so I have a a group of people that I've sung with for about 8 years. We call it Fish to Birds. It's
Yeah, I've
improvisational
heard them. Yeah,
a cappella, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so there's one game that we have, which is the Fish to Birds starts. I mean, like if I'm the soloist, I will think of a song, all the things you are. And then Fish to Birds does an improvisational thing, and then I sing all the things you are
Yeah, yeah.
in that
Great,
structure.
great.
And it's
Yeah.
really, I like it. I
Oh
love
yeah,
it.
oh yeah.
But that's pretty wild
It's
though.
pretty wild, though. I got to say, for me, I'm not familiar enough yet with the
With
music
the
to go, oh, they're
material.
doing this, they're doing that. But I've talked to, we talk about it, and I say, oh yeah, that we did that song, but instead of this lyric, I did the lyric from that song. Like, okay.
So many cultures are so rich in that kind of stuff, like the tango. My brother-in-law from my first marriage is a drummer named Joey Heredia, great drummer, and he got into tango big time here in Los Angeles. And so he was telling me about tango, and the singer leads in the
Yes,
moment.
yes.
They lead the band.
That's
The
exactly
band
how,
has to be
yes.
educated in all the different.
That's exactly how Fado is, and that's one of the reasons I love playing it. Not only because I'm on the edge of disaster at all times because I don't know the songs that well, and there are no charts. It's
Yeah.
just ear and memory. But the tempo is extremely fluid, extremely fluid. So you have to be 100% present with the singer and go with he or she where they go. And it's like, with jazz, we do the same thing, but generally the tempo is kind of established and off you go. But you want to follow, and you're following the soloists and so on and so forth. But this is another step beyond that, and it's just a different, it's a different environment, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, my friend Roland, who's a guitarist, he's he loves Zappa. He wants to have your take on Zappa.
Zappa is amazing. Aesthetically, it doesn't appeal to me. And this is, well, there's a lot of music that I can appreciate for craft and inspiration and challenge and a lot of things. I tell people all the time, as an artist, everything we do is judged subjectively. And there's no right or wrong. You like it or you don't like it. So I admire Zappa. I think he did some amazing things and groomed a lot of wonderful musicians and was a challenging thing. Aesthetically, it doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go, Roland. I've had
Sorry.
on a bunch of, no, it's okay. He's just a big Zappa fan, but I've had on a bunch of musicians who have played with Zappa or Zappa's son, or, anyway, so it's funny because, somebody like you who has a really wide, varied palette, I can see why he would ask
I'm
about it.
also, I'm a pretty commercial person. Not that Zappa wasn't commercial, but I really, one of my goals is to reach as many people with my music as I can.
Yes.
And so does that dumb my music down? Well, maybe, but I'm okay with that. It's like I want people to enjoy it. And if they're not enjoying it, I understand that because it is subjective, but I want to try to appeal, wherever I can. And so that's me. And
Yeah.
I love people that are more than willing to go out on the edge and explore those edges and suffer the slings and arrows of people like me.
Yeah. It's all good. And Taylor's asking, which is always a good question, in the general sense. He knows, I mean, if you feel a creative block and rut, what helps you find the motivation to come back and refresh your brain?
So it's funny. In Portugal, one of the things I do is I am involved also over there with music education, and I've spoken at the basically the Berkeley of Portugal, and I've also talked at colleges all over, mainly Southern California, and this is a very common question,
Yeah.
and my feeling is a writer's block, which is what we're kind of talking about, comes from a couple of things. One is overjudgment of yourself and your work. And the the unwillingness to say, this isn't perfect, but I'm going to move ahead anyway. So there's that. The other thing that I encourage composers to do is to actualize, not necessarily like, people say Beethoven could hear the whole thing in his head, which may or may not be true. We're not in Beethoven's head, so we don't know. But before I start any piece, almost, I have the whole thing actualized in my head of remember I said simple but effective. What is the effect of this piece? What do I want it to do? And in doing that, it really helps fight writer's block, because I know where I'm going. Now, sometimes I don't end up getting there and I go someplace else, and that's fine too. But so what I would encourage people when they're in that position is just continue writing, don't worry that it's bad, and just see where you go. You can always go back and rework it. The other thing is put your butt in the chair and write. And it doesn't have to be great, but you have to write, otherwise nothing happens. So it can just write crap if that's what it is until something good comes out. And I think eventually something good comes out. And I think we can build these things into big monumental things that we feel like we can't get over, but we're creating them ourselves. So uncreate it by looking past the block of what it is. This is what I want this piece to say. I want this piece to be an exciting, fun, danceable piece, or I want this piece to be very moody and emotional. What are you trying to say? Once you know what you're trying to say, it's much easier to say it. And so that's what I encourage. And I've had plenty of times where I'm like, I don't like this. Select all, delete. And sometimes that's the best way to break that.
Yeah. I remember when there was a point where I was writing, what was coming out was folky stuff. And I was disappointed in myself, it wasn't jazzy enough. So I stopped writing for about a year. And then a friend of mine said something. He was an artist, and he said this one sentence. It was about the muse. And I realized, I stopped the muse. It's just, who cares? I'll write it. I don't have to sing it. I could throw it away.
Yes.
But don't stop. Don't classify it. And also
our own judgment is, we judge things. Yeah.
I like the idea, like right now I allowed myself to, I sometimes get into writing these small, simple pieces, and which don't develop into something, whatever, bigger or more of a song. And I saw somebody the other night, and he was doing a suite. And it struck me, I could write a whole bunch of those and then make it into a suite.
Absolutely.
So it's important to keep going. And the other thing that I really like is something that Elizabeth Gilbert, author, said, was that curiosity is creativity.
Uh-huh.
Wow. You just become curious.
Yeah.
And then it flows,
I'm really big on concepts. At the beginning, you were playing a cutoff of my album, Dan Radlauer and his Quarantine Big Band, which I did obviously during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And each one of those songs, if you were to look at the title, you could probably tell me what it sounds like before you heard it. Because a lot of times I'll come up with a title and like, that's an interesting thing. Let me explore that as a concept.
Yeah.
And there's something I'm working on right now, and I'd like to invite your fabulous audience to take a listen to it, because it's in process, and I'd love some feedback. After the Unexpected Guest thing is done, for a number of years, probably about 5 years, I've been working on a concept big band album, which is called Jazz Zodiac. And it's the 12 signs of the Zodiac as I interpret them for the big band. And each sign features an artist, someone who I know and love, that is either a Taurus, like Wayne Bergeron, who we all know and love. He's my Capricorn. And if you want to hear how Wayne, just have Wayne blow your mind, go to my website, radmusic.net. You'll see Jazz Zodiac, and play Capricorn, which is Wayne Bergeron. Now the band is fake, but Wayne recorded, like I'm recording all the artists first, and everyone, Wayne's a Capricorn. I don't know if you know Kirsten Edkins, sax player. She's Taurus. Alex Isles is Cancer, and John DeVersa is Libra. All these people are playing their signs,
Oh, I see.
and so that's going to be my next recording project once the unexpected. There it is. Let's hear a little bit of Wayne. We can't resist it. Hit it. Click on Capricorn.
has a lot of stuff in there.
The
Yeah.
kitchen sink, yeah.
Yeah, it's really
So
good.
that's Capricorn, and as you can see, I've got all the signs there.
What, I mean, let's see, what's the question? Kind of, how is that referring to Capricorn? Or is it basically Wayne Bergeron?
Well, that's kind of an exception in that it is kind of Wayne Bergeron, as opposed to we could listen, and we don't have to listen to the whole thing, but click on Taurus.
Okay, sure.
This is a little bit more about
The
that.
intro or no, the
Oh
regular?
yeah, the one, that one right there. Yes, you've got it. Okay, so let's stop that. Stop that there.
So they're reflecting what your feeling is about these horoscope
Yes,
signs?
the zodiac signs are, some people refer to them as archetypes, which is sort of a certain personality traits and stuff. And so I did a bunch of research on the various archetypes of the different signs, and where I could, I incorporate that. But Wayne's a good friend, and it was like I just wanted to make a great piece for Wayne. But actually, it's interesting because I would say Libra, which is a John DeVersa,
Yeah.
hits both of them. If you want to play again, we don't have to play it, listen to the whole thing, but listen
Okay.
listen a little bit Libra here.
I love John DeVersa.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
And Libra's a very emotional, introspective kind of sign.
Yeah. Balanced too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, when they start, they when into them, you know. I love Keith's tone, man. He's so good.
And the idea of this was two things always going at once in Gemini.
Okay, so that's the Gemini thing. Uh-huh.
So anyway, so this is, again, the idea is that I love writing conceptual pieces.
Yeah.
And it helps me not get stuck, and not that it writes itself, but that I'm drawn through the composition by the concept that I'm trying to embrace.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So man, your life is really full.
I got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, you have a lot of things that you're
Yeah, and I mean, I really feel blessed in that I've been able to make music my life, send my kids, as I say, I send my kids to great private schools and great colleges, and now great therapists.
okay. That's funny.
So no, I feel very blessed to have made this my life's work.
Yeah.
I'm not curing cancer, but I do try to provide community. Again, I want to encourage people, if they're interested, to come to the Big Band on Sunday. It really is a community experience, and it's really fun. I feel my work over at Pacific Palisades High School, it's much less about the music than it is about creating the community for these kids so that they can get through high school, which is, as we all know, a very difficult time, and create a safe, fun environment and a team effort of doing something together. Is the music great? It has its moments, but really it's about those relationships. So for me, I love making music. I love playing live. I love being in the studio. I love writing. And I feel very lucky, and I've worked very hard at finding ways to bring music into a community situation where it enhances what's going on in the community.
Yeah.
And I think you do that too, Cathy. I think that's something that you're really good at. I follow you and the things that you're doing, even this thing here. You know, we're drawn by our love for this thing called music. I still don't know why it's so important to us, but it is. And people identify with it, and they create, and you and I, and we make community. And there's really, it's so important. You know, it's composing for me is kind of a solo affair. I'm not a good collaborator on composing. I'm too much of a control freak, and I like to do things my way. But when it comes to playing, I feel that I'm very collaborative, and that I really love being in that playing community. If people want me to lead, I will lead. If there's a leader, I will follow. I love being in all those situations, in a live situation where it's a community. And I play with a lot of lousy musicians. I shouldn't say lousy, hobbyists, beginners. And I'm happy to be there and be the tent pole that holds them up. And I don't judge them. We're just here to have fun. And I play with people who play circles around me, and I just do my best to keep up with them, you know? So I love the whole spectrum of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I even had a jam session for like 16 years. And the first 7 years were great. It was just a great session. Mm-hmm. At that time, there weren't a lot of jams in the town. It was like about 23 years ago. So the first 7 years, we did it at the Sportsman's Lodge every Wednesday.
Yes.
People would come in from all over the world. They'd come in, and I had a very flowy kind of attitude. If you came in and I could get you up, like while the band was playing, I would do that, you know, and I'd just make it all kind of move smoothly. It was great. A lot of people made good friends and got
Sure.
experience.
I liken it sometimes to, you know, people talk about like a palm reader or
Yeah.
an astrologist, whatever. I don't believe in any of that stuff, but I believe in people. And that I believe a palm reader might think they're reading the palm, but they're just an intuitive person. And that palm reading is their vehicle to get into that person's world. And for me, and my wife said this, whenever we travel, I connect with local musicians, and it opens up, I get into their community. So for me, my key to community, either creating or going in, is always music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's my language. And, you know, and everyone seems to love music, and that's just a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Who were your mentors, either alive or dead or whatever?
So
You know?
a couple of very important people. Do you know who Les Hooper is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Les is not well now. He's an older gentleman, great composer and a very good friend. And he was a mentor without even knowing he was a mentor. I remember meeting Les, and I said this to him the other day because he's kind of in a dimming situation. I said, you know, Les, I looked up to you, and when I met you, I viewed you as a mentor, but you viewed me as a peer. And so I've tried to embrace that. So he's one person that was very important to me. I had a great teacher. I went to Fullerton College for a couple of years, had a great teacher there, Terry Blackley, who ran the jazz band. And he was just a person who could really bring out the best in everyone. And and we're still very good friends. And there was another composer that was on staff there, Brent Pierce, he was that. John Prince, who used to run the jazz program at Long Beach State,
Yeah.
was also another important mentor for me. I have a very dear friend, Charles Bernstein, who is a composer, writes a lot of film music. Same thing. I told him just the other night, we had dinner together. He's in his 80s, and I said, you know, Charles, when I met you, I viewed you as a mentor, but you viewed me as a peer, and that was quite a gift.
Yeah, yeah. And are there records that you would take on a desert island with you?
Certainly, Tower of Power's first album is, I would still go back and listen to that.
Is that the one that What Is Hip is on,
Yes,
and all that
yes,
stuff?
yes,
Yeah, that was a great record.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's either the first or second. I think it's the first one, but maybe the second. The other album that I really love, you know, like, of course, everyone says the Beatles, but oddly, Help. I invite you to go back and listen to Help and listen to the songs. The songs are so good. I never grow tired of them. There's just not a clunker in the whole bunch. So those are, or to me, if I was going to be on a desert island, I'd probably want, you know, music from that era, because that's where we all kind of found ourselves. You know, there's been studies showing that everyone's favorite music is the music they listened to when they were in teens and early 20s. So, there you go.
That's great. Yeah, I'm from Boston. I went to Berkeley, and when I go back there, it's like I travel back in time.
Sure,
You know,
sure, yeah.
music, the feelings. It's amazing. The music was so poignant then. It was the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, Woodstock and
Sure.
you know, people like Tower of Power and
Yeah.
Weather Report,
Yeah, yeah.
and John Mayall, and you know, I mean,
Earth, Wind, and Fire for me is another just
Yeah.
like, you know, touchstone. Obviously, Steely Dan. These are things, again, back to, I'm kind of a commercial guy, and these artists were able to create sophisticated, interesting music and make it accessible to the public. And to me, Stevie Wonder, another person, same thing, you know. So I admire people. Herbie Hancock, another one of my heroes. Dave Grusin's a hero. Dave Sanborn. These are people who I just, you know, revere.
yeah, yeah. So, talking to people, and I mean, it sounds like you could do a TED talk too. Have you done one?
No, but I'd love to.
I don't think you'd run out of things to say. You've probably already said it during this interview, but what would be like a broad scope concept that you'd like to impart to people to, you know, get them inspired?
Well, I think the first thing is wide lens, look at all music and, you know, and find what resonates with you. Don't be afraid to step outside of what you think is your music.
Yeah,
And then if you're a player or you're a composer or arranger, try to remove the judgment, yet stay critical of your own work. And that's a really fine line and a hard thing to do. You have to be honest about what it is, but you can always, you know, especially in composing, you can always change it. You can always go back and change it. So those are really the things that I would do. And then think again, whether you're playing live or whether you're composing, think about what the end effect that you want your listeners to experience. Just a second, I have to text my wife. Hang on one second.
yeah. I'll just chat for a second, and it's like I really like that idea. You know, when he was speaking about writing before, and if you have an idea of what the compass is of what you want to write, the end product, then at least you have the vision of something at the end of the tunnel. So you can keep moving toward that.
Right. Yeah, so those are the things I would say, and don't be afraid of new music, new technology, and young people.
Yeah, good comments. Yeah, it always kills me when I hear people say, "Oh, jazz is dead." No, it's not. It's just alive. It's changing. you know?
Yeah.
That's all. It's
Everything
great.
changes. Everything changes. Everything is influenced by other things. And, you know, we have to just roll with it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this is the kind of thing that can teach people on so many subconscious levels, what kind of experiencing all this. There's change, there's control with change, there's improvisation, there's a moving forward. It actually inspires the human condition. You can't help. I mean, if you get really into all of that, there's something that gets in there. That always intrigues me about like the kind of the movies that they play over and over and over again, like Temple of Doom. What's his, the
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones, things like that. These heroes have that. They know what they're doing. They're good at what they do. They have this desire, intent, but they always go forward. And in the face of danger, even, they don't really stop and think about it. They go forward and they handle what it is to handle.
Yeah.
And I think that subconsciously has an effect on people. And that's why they play those movies a lot. I think that's why, because it's giving people a feeling of, I can do this. Whatever that is. And I think music does too, maybe in a more subtle way or, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just curious with what you do. I mean, do you schedule your workload in a particular way or just whatever's important and you're working on?
The only scheduling I have is once I started for the last 8 years doing the jazz band over at Pali High. But I'm a volunteer, so I go in. They meet 5 days a week, but I'll go in 2 or 3 days a week. That's the only real scheduling I have. Everything else is just as it comes to me and as it happens.
Yeah.
Clients calling.
I won't keep you too much longer. Let's see. Do you have a few favorite memories of all of this stuff?
So
Things that stand out?
yeah, I mean the planetarium experience was really fantastic, and the score won the Hollywood Music and Media Award for 2023 for Best Theme Park Attraction Score. So that was meaningful to me.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I did my big band, my first Sunday of the month big band, but I made it a fundraiser for fire victims, and we had a great turnout. We had a killing band,
Yeah.
and we played mainly my music, and the band was great. Everyone had a great time. And that was like, you know what? This was a special day. I had a great band playing my music. What could be wrong with that? I had people coming for a good cause, raising money, enjoying themselves. The band stayed afterwards just yakking and having a good time. And it was like, I made this happen. And that feels good. And
Yeah.
so that was a good day. I love playing with my acoustic asylum band. I didn't do any of it in 24, but I'd like to get back to that. It's really a special band and a special experience.
Yeah. Is there any video on that?
Yeah. If you, let me see, if I put it in the chat, will you get that?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Also, we didn't really talk about where are you from and how did you fall into all this?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and I had the good fortune of having a girl reject me in high school, and I started writing music because I was so depressed.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's it. That's what got me into music.
Wow. And so obviously you didn't get into big band right away.
No, I started getting into jazz because it was harmonically and rhythmically interesting, but at the same time I was exploring music technology and lots of stuff. So
Yeah. And how did you study big band?
I studied with
Right.
John Prince, and then I studied with Dick Grove. Then I
Okay.
studied orchestration, wasn't big band, but just general orchestration with Albert Harris, who was teaching everybody in the 80s.
Okay.
So, he was the LA orchestration teacher.
Another Dick Grove attendee.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this is Dan's different kind of a
Yeah.
band.
So can I say, I do need to go. Maybe you can go out with this. And
Okay.
thank you, Cathy, for having me on. It was really fun. You're
Thank
a
you,
wonderful
Dan.
interviewer. Thank you to whoever showed up and is out there and for the great questions. And please come on Sunday to the Elks Club in Santa Monica, 1 to 3 p.m. You won't regret it.
I think I'll be there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Hi, Dan. Thanks. Yeah. So we're gonna stay on and we'll play the Acoustic Asylum live montage. And let me say too that so this week, Friday, I'm doing Mondays and Fridays now. Friday, I'm gonna have Roger Treese on the show. Roger Treese is kind of an ultimate professional singer, studio singer. He also sang with Bobby McFerrin's group. I forget the name of it. It was a group of singers that Bobby led, and they were all like professional great singers. So about 8 people, 10 people, something like that. And also he arranged one of Bobby's fantastic records. I can't remember the name of it right this second. Anyway, so Roger Treese, he's good. The other thing is, if you're in LA, Thursday night, Kevin Rhodes is producing a fundraiser in Gardena. And let's see, you can see it on my Facebook, but let's see, it is, I'm looking for it. It's called the Altadena. Let's see, where are we? Altadena Aftermath Benefit Concert. I'm going to pin it, and then you can see on my website, and you'll want to see it because it's it's the Altadena Aftermath Benefit Concert, Gardena Cinema on Crenshaw Boulevard in Gardena. It's Thursday, the 27th. Bunny Brunel, Kayleen Peoples, Alina Gilliam, George Gilliam, Steve Hamel, Ali Basio Elder, Brian Cabrera, Amber Weeks, Cathy Segal-Garcia, and more. So, so that's from 6 to possibly 11:30. Doors open at 5. Gardena Cinema. And hope you can, let's see if I can copy a link and put it into this. Okay, so that is the Gardena Thursday night. I told you about Friday noontime hang. And for those of you available, Saturday mornings, 9:30 to 1, I am performing at Jinkies, which I'm going to put, but it's also on my website and Facebook. Jinkies in Santa Monica. 2nd and Broadway. 9:30 to 1 with Dori Amarillo on guitar. Amarillo on guitar, and Joey De Leon, really fun person, and a great player on percussion. Come over, have breakfast. It's really nice. It's pretty close to the water. It's 2nd Street. Let's see, so that's, and then of course this Sunday is Dan's band, which I'm going to try and go to 1 to 3 in Santa Monica. Lots happening in Santa Monica. So here's the acoustic asylum that Dan was talking about. This is a really different band than his big band. Oh, it's that Kulaks. This is a good use of Kulaks, isn't it?
I said a fish heads and rice. You order it once, you're gonna order it twice. Sounds pretty gross, but tastes pretty nice. There's nothing in the world like fish heads and rice. I said a fish heads and rice. With just enough sauce and just enough spice. You get the gills and you get the eyes. So get yourself a bowl of fish heads and rice.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. Okay, so that's a band that you would want to see. Yeah. And the other one, which I want to see this Rocky. No Rocky, but I didn't. This example.
You are the one who makes me smile. You make me see what's pure and true. Yes, you are extraordinary woman. You are the one who brings me joy, to cast out every lingering doubt that you are extraordinary woman.
So, Rocky, I think you get the award for traveling the farthest of our unexpected guests.
Yes, the energy of the project, almost like it pulls you from wherever you are.
And where did it pull you from?
From Ghana.
Right.
Yeah, yes.
We met and we just started talking, and I went through your catalog.
Yeah.
This was the song, and I thought this song is the one that's going to translate best for this group.
Your sweetness brings me happiness, like the rain to a thirsty earth. Today, we are meant to be together, 'cause everything feels so right.
Extraordinary Woman is such an emotional and personal kind of communicating to somebody you love, and the sound of the orchestra and the horns and the arrangements that you put in there was so emotional, almost like another counterpoint of that same vulnerability, like a beautiful dimension of the same language, but being told with different instruments.
And that's part of what we're doing here. The premise of our album is called Unexpected Guests. People will not expect to hear Afrobeat with a big band.
That was really fun for me as an arranger to say, this song lived in this world.
Yeah.
We're going to take the essence of that song and put put into this world.
Yeah.
But we want to treat both worlds with respect.
When I first saw you in the crowd, sweet emotions swept right through my soul. Yes, you are extraordinary woman.
Isn't that cool?
Music is a language that it doesn't need to explain itself to itself. When it feels right, it's like the communication is apparent, you know.
It doesn't need a label.
Yeah, yes.
We can combine the genres, and we drop the label, and we just let it speak for itself.
Oh, really cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that and thanks for coming by. See you at one of these gigs, either Thursday night's fundraiser in Gardena, or Friday here at the Noontime Hang, or Saturday at Jinkies in Santa Monica, or Sunday at Dan Louder's big band.